Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm delighted to be joined by JP Mason. Next hour we're going to be talking all things Celtic. And Neil Lennon enjoyed himself at the Oasis gig. JP, did you? There's my Celtic link right into a wee chat about Oasis. How did you enjoy it, mate? Biggest gig in a long time in Scotland, right?
Yeah, I just saw that video of Neil Lennon this morning, actually singing along to, was it Cigarettes and Alcohol?
It was. Somebody said snus and alcohol.
Right. Well, to be fair, I can confirm that Neil Lennon is not a bandwagon jumper. He was at the Barrowland in 2001, up the back at next to the desk. So I remember myself and Nick Wood of the Heriot Watt in Edinburgh Uni CSC. We went over and basically we guided him. Although I think Nick kind of knew him because he'd booked him for the Tommy Burns supper. So we went over and I had a quick word. And so he was there. I was there Friday, Saturday, which sounds excessive, and it probably is. But I took my mate on the Friday that we saw them together at the Barrowland 24 years ago. And he's still texting me now, just being like, it was like one of the greatest nights ever. And he works actually kind of near Murrayfield Ratho, and he was working on Tuesday night and he could hear the Oasis gig at his work, and he said it was torture because he was like, I just wanted to be there again. But unbelievable show. I was an absolute half-shut knife on Sunday. I couldn't, the energy that I expended singing like all the songs, Cast, Ashcroft, Oasis, Two Nights in the Spin, every single song pretty much. So I fairly took it out of me, and it felt special, and it felt kind of like it was, going to, it'll be remembered. Those gigs will be remembered like the Loch Lomond gigs. I think, like, oh, you were there. I was there. I wasn't at Loch Lomond, but I made damn sure I was at those gigs.
The thing is, as well, JP, we do get some criticism for daring to delve into the music chat. But what I would say is this. The emotions that you feel at the football, people who are not into football look at adults like you and I and wonder why on earth you're getting so emotional about this thing called football or this thing called Celtic. And what I've seen from these events, particularly Oasis in the last wee while, is the amount of emotion being shown by grown adults who probably have seen them first time round, like people crying. JP, I've seen a lot of this kind of stuff. And I was looking at it and I was like, no, actually, I get that, because Celtic can make you greet as well. And it's just that love of football, that love of music. There is a massive crossover, and we'll jump back and forward in between both subjects anytime we are on this show. There's no doubt about that.
And then you only need to look at what Noel and Liam's kids were wearing both nights. I don't know if that's been mentioned.
I loved it.
Nate with the trackie and Jean with the Celtic top. That top actually behind you, he was wearing that.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool to see.
It was very cool. It was very, very cool to see that. They've always had the links to Celtic. The 6-2 game, obviously, Noel was there. Roll with it. Started off in Paris. Come on, Celtic, says Liam Gallagher on Twitter. I'll retweet that from time to time, particularly when we're playing Rangers. We're going to be talking about everything that's happening, and I want to start off with the Daizen Maeda rumours. There's some strong rumours, and I was sent a very interesting article today, in actual fact. I don't know if you remember the award-winning John James site, who is behind a paywall. And he was talking about some of the rumblings around the Daizen Maeda rumours and how there may well be some substance to it, JP. Now, I hope he's wrong. I hope he's miles off it. But he does have a track record of breaking stories and credible sources, etc. So it's a bit of a worry for me. I have said coming into the new season or the pre-season, we generally do, over a season, we generally do sell 2 first-team starters. And we were looking over the last few seasons, JP, and sometimes it's even more than that. If you want to throw in the likes of, Giakoumakis, I know he wasn't quite a starter every week, and guys like that. But we have lost a lot of first-team players. So if we look at last season, and we've lost Greg Taylor, and we've lost Jota, and Kuhn, and Kyogo. And who's been replaced? Well, obviously Jota will come back, but at this moment in time, and we've known for some time that he'll be out for a lengthy period. Well, Greg Taylor's been replaced by Kieran Tierney, and that's a step up, and that's great. But we're still 3 short. So these rumours of Daizen Maeda and there being an offer, a large offer for his services, I'm not sure who the club is, are really quite concerning. I'll tell you why, JP, because as fans, I'm pretty sure most people in the comment section will share our view. I don't speak for anybody, but let us know if you disagree. You want to keep Daizen Maeda. I'm pretty sure Brendan Rodgers wants to keep him as well. I think it would be catastrophic to lose him between now and the end of the transfer window.
It would, especially given our kind of lack of forward options. It does kind of call back to what I was saying. I was concerned about in a previous show, maybe it was last week, I don't know, when I was sort of saying there is that concern that maybe asking the same players to go to the well season in, season out, when they've done pretty much everything. Daizen Maeda's won everything that he can win in Scotland. He's played in the Champions League. He's scored in the Champions League, and you do start to wonder: are there thoughts of other challenges for players that have been here for a while? You can't hold a player at a club under ransom. Do you know what I mean? If there is actually a will to move, the thing that would concern me is if the money that's been offered is one of those ones where the club are, well, we're obviously going to accept that bid, and then we'll allow Daizen Maeda.
What do you think that bid is for the board, JP? Do you think it's 20? Do you think it's 25? I mean, where in the ballpark is that figure that you think, if that comes in, no matter what we say and no matter what Brendan Rodgers says, that player's off? What do you think the figure is?
Probably around about 20, I would say. I mean, I would be looking for more than that, given some of the figures that have been flung about for supposed other players from a club in this city. If you're talking Igaman and Raskin going for 20-25 million, then I'm pretty sure Daizen Maeda's done a hell of a lot more than they've done in this game up here, and he's got the trophies to show for it. But yeah, I think obviously you start to look into the player's age profile, and then you start to look at the money that we could get. And it was interesting listening to the show yesterday about Dermot Desmond's obsession with value. And the obsession with value would come into full display with a £20 million bid for Daizen Maeda, when we paid £1.5-2 million for him. When you put it against each other like that, and then you think about his age, I'm 100% not wanting him out the door. I want Daizen Maeda to stay, but I'm only looking at it from their terms, and also potentially from the players' terms. If he wants to move, I was of the thinking that maybe we would get one more season out of him because of the World Cup, and then maybe it would be time to move on from there. But I don't know. It's one that's been kind of bubbling away in the background, going, is this the season that we lose Daizen Maeda? And it wouldn't surprise me. But what would surprise me is if we didn't have someone lined up to come in. And that's the worry, is if, like, you need to have a contingency plan for players leaving, and right now we didn't have a contingency plan for Jota leaving because nobody's in the door. But again, very interesting to hear yesterday's show, because something you've never even thought about, really, or I hadn't thought about it until you hear it coming out of John Hughes's mouth, is that what if the player does say, well, come back to me when you're in the Champions League? Because that is legitimately something that could hold up a deal, because they want guaranteed Champions League football, because they want to play at that level. They know they've got at least 8 games in that competition to showcase what they're worth. And if you're talking about the same stepping stone plan that Kuhn came in on, where it was agreed that it was a 2-year plan and blah, 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 he plays in the Champions League, his value goes up, we sell him for 17 million, and everyone's a winner. But that would then lead into players that we're looking at. They're looking at the same thing. The agents are looking at the same thing, and they're going, right, well, you can increase your value, but we've got two games to negotiate before we can guarantee you Champions League football. But what I would say, and I was thinking about this earlier, I would rather, despite all the gnashing of teeth and the kind of wailing and everything else that's been going on, myself included, I would rather if we were to negotiate those Champions League ties, that we were then able to go and get those level of players, rather than just going out and signing, a player from 4 or 5 rungs down on the list. And I'd rather go for our 1 or 2 than go for our 4 or 5. 4 or 5 right now, get into the Champions League, and then you've got inferior quality when you're going into the Champions League, or get to the Champions League, hopefully with what we've got, and then sign those, 1 or 2 top targets that are going to be better for us when we get there. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does make sense. And this is, for me though, JP, that they get some of the strategy right and then other bits wrong. So listen, we're going to be talking about the Aberdeen performance, upcoming game against Falkirk, and obviously the Champions League game. Brendan Rodgers had an interview on Celtic TV today. We'll get round to that as well. But this is pretty much breaking news. This was only sent to me about an hour before the show about Maeda. And I think that if the club say, right, this is what we do, and I had them all written down right back to, when Ange comes in and we sell we sell a raft of players when Ange comes in. We sell Odds and Edouard, don't we, and Chris Aya and Ryan Christie. So, I mean, we actually end up selling 3 first-team players at that stage, and we make big money for them. And then the following season, and it continues, and we've sold Jota and Starfelt and Kyogo, Matt O'Reilly, and it continues every single season. This season, it's obviously Kuhn. Now, if that's part of your plan, and it's like, see, every season, that person that's come round to that part of the cycle and we get the money, that's fine. They go on and we see how much profit was it. It's like you're saying there's somebody in that Celtic boardroom with a big calculator typing it in. Oh, that's 13 Daizen Maeda's, 13 times his transfer fee. So that's fine, right? Because we're in a very, very small pond where we don't have the riches of the broadcasting deals, and we don't have the riches of the advertising revenue that other big leagues do, JP. So we need to kind of bend over when it comes to that kind of thing. That's only fine if the other parts of the cycle are also moving. So your transfer windows, every single one of them, you need to be bringing in quality so that in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, that guy you've brought in becomes the next player that leaves. And unfortunately, if you get 2 out of 5 transfer windows right, that doesn't always happen. And that's when the quality drops. So you're losing 3 players of quality.
And we've got one badly wrong 2 years ago, which has impacted all the rest of them. So
it is, it is. And I would go further as well and say that after the initial season under Ange Postecoglou, where just about every player, hit the ground running, made an immediate impact. After that, it was slim pickings under Ange. It was Aaron Moy, it was Alistair Johnson, but there was a lot of players who came in, JP, who didn't become, part of that cycle where 2 or 3 years down the line, they become the guys that you sell out. But because we've always had a good transfer window behind us, we're on this kind of cycle. So part of the cycle's working. The other part, I don't think is at the moment. And they might look at guys like other players in the squad who have got value, and that's fine. But we've got to maintain and improve. So at the moment, I'm looking at it, 4 first-team players out. 1 has come in to replace the 4 that I've mentioned, which means we're still 3 short. Yeah, I get that Nygren has come in and he's got a first-team jersey. We'll talk about him as well. But he's not coming in to replace one of the guys that's left. He's coming in to have more of a competition, if you like, in that area of the park. So for me, Maeda, even if we had somebody lined up, JP, I think it would be catastrophic for Maeda to go. And then the question would need to be as well, how much money do we need? How much money do we need that we're not really using for the benefit either of the team on the park, the infrastructure behind the scenes, the stadium? Big announcement yesterday, they're putting the banners up. It's embarrassing that that's even still being spoken about all these months later. I mean, forget the banners, do something a wee bit more, for me, modern. Get the media mesh up there and actually have something that's worth looking at, rather than an old banner that becomes dried and faded very, very quickly. Then it blows off in a storm. And then you don't even see it for 7 months after that, JP. So that doesn't excite me when you've got 70 odds, probably more now, sitting in the bank. Gathering interest, yes. causing you corporate tax every year to the tune of 7 million in the last statement as well. So, it's not really an efficient way to run the business. But Maeda can't leave. Maeda can't leave. If you think, right, that there's been, and we've been called, I don't know, bedwetters and throwing the toys at the pram and all this kind of stuff entitled, you imagine the reaction of somebody like Daizen Maeda leaving in this transfer window, JP. It's unthinkable. It is unthinkable, isn't it?
It is, but at the same time, you have obviously got to consider that the player might want to move. He might want to test himself somewhere else. As I said before, we can't just hold people to ransom. But if it is down to, say it's down to money, say it's like, okay, you've got a chance to go and earn X at another club. If Celtic have done everything in their power to keep him, because of his unique value to the side, then I would be disappointed if they hadn't gone, right, okay, well, why don't we give you a new deal on these terms? And again, I've said this before, nobody in that dressing room could possibly balk at the fact that Daizen Maeda would become one of the top earners at the club. I don't know what he's on just now. I can't remember if he must have signed a new deal in the time that he's been here, right?
Yeah, he did, because I remember when around about the time actually when Brendan came in, I believe, and people were going on about, the body language experts came out, JP, he's not happy playing under Brendan Rodgers and all this stuff. Next thing you know, he signed a new deal. So he's on an improved contract from his original one.
Right, so he's on an improved contract. We still don't know what that is. Could be 20 grand a week, could be 25 grand a week. But if you were to push that up to 30, 35 into your Kieran Tierney, Callum McGregor sort of realm, then I don't think anybody could balk at that. If the player was happy with that for a season, say, and he gets obviously he's going to be playing every week. He'll be hopefully playing Champions League ahead of the World Cup, and then look at it next summer. If that was to please all parties, but to lose him now would feel it doesn't feel like the right time. Sometimes you kind of know when it's the right time, and I think if Daizen Maeda was to leave next summer after hopefully a successful end to this transfer window, where we have got in a level of player that has pleased the manager and pleased the fans, and we're not. It's obviously because Kuhn's left as well, like in this transfer window, and we're not falling away so far from the standards that we've enjoyed. Then maybe it would become a little bit more palatable if that was to happen next summer. But this summer, I agree with you, it would be a bombshell of monumental proportions. And I've always said the one player I didn't want to leave Celtic after Postecoglou left was Maeda. That was the one player that I was like, surely to God, somebody's going to come and get him now. And I just hope it's not now.
This, when Ange left, I kind of thought to myself, he's the type of player that he might come back in for. Maeda's more important to Celtic since then. Last season showed that he's even more important than he was when Ange Postecoglou left. I'm going to bring in some comments and then we'll get fired into everything else Celtic related. Thank you, every single one of you, for continuing to support what we do. I was just having a look this morning, and in the last 28 days, we have had over 500 new subscribers to the YouTube channel, which is tremendous. So welcome on board. You might have been watching and not subscribing. You might be brand new to the party. Welcome to the world of Acsom. We talk, we disagree, everything Celtic related. We want the best for the club. Agree, disagree, get it all in the chat. So let's bring up some of the chat. Let's do that. Square Sausage Mick. Maybe they've forgotten the PIN number. Are you talking about the Celtic board trying to buy players, or are you talking about the fact that JP and I were 29 seconds late in coming on? I'm not sure, but I'm going to say it's the board. Alistair Hardy, any truth in the rumour Daizen off after qualifiers? Heard it myself this morning, Alistair. All I'm going to say is I hope there is no truth. We've spoken to Liam Carrigan, who is based in Japan, who monitors the news sources over there. Journalists work differently in Japan. There's less tittle-tattle, less speculation and gossip, and more, real journalism, actually, where people are checking their sources and things are more credible before it goes into print. And he says he doesn't believe the rumours. Liam says he doesn't believe them. We're talking about them. We're not saying they're true. We're talking about the reaction if they are true as well. And we've also got Kieran Deeney, never mind the gigs. Where are the signings? Yes, I know. And I knew that opening up with Neil Lennon at an Oasis gig would have got a wee bit of a reaction. It's not all about whether or not you love Oasis. But you know what? It's just part of the chat. It's always been part of the chat on Acsom. Football, music, fashion, believe it or not, culture.
The logo kind of gives it away, does it not?
It does, yeah. We did rip them off, waiting on that lawyer's letter, JP, coming through the door. However, there was also a scene, Jamie Carragher was on a bus or a train coming back from an Oasis gig, and he was reeking. He was absolutely steaming, and as so happens these days, somebody got their phone out and filmed them. And their first show back on the overlap, Roy Keane, Ian Wright, Gary Neville were ripping into him. And they opened the show talking about Oasis. Now, we're not influenced by the overlap. We're not comparing ourselves to them because JP and I are not getting paid 10 grand per show for Acsom. But you know what? If you're not going to give them a hard time, just let us have a wee moment. They've had their Murrayfield gigs. They're away to Ireland. And yeah, we're big fans. No, everybody is. Danny boy, here we go. Maeda not the same player because he's out of position. He's cut a bit of an isolated figure. Let's talk about the first couple of games, JP. Obviously, you've not a chance on here anyway to talk about the Aberdeen performance. Maeda's not got going yet. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. First one being he's a better centre forward. He can't play anywhere else other than the left wing because we've got no one else who could play in his position. And that actually leads me to a concern that I've got, an overriding concern. You know, for people who, even last night, I was getting comments on the YouTube, oh, I'm quite happy with the recruitment. You need to calm down. Right, okay, so what happens if Maeda gets injured, Kieran Tierney gets injured or he's ill, or James A. Forrest, 34-year-old right winger, most decorated player, all the caveats. What if James A. Forrest gets injured? Then your drop down in quality is stark. It's stark. So at the moment, Liam Scales is a backup left back, even though he's playing centre half. Ian Moura's not made the bench yet, JP. If Maeda drops out for whatever reason and we don't change shape, who plays left wing? Well, James Forrest can play there, I guess, or Yang can play on the left, if not a little bit less effective than he is on the right. And what happens if Forrest gets injured on the right? Same rules apply. You're looking at Yang or Tilio. So it's no all right. It's absolutely no all right. And I don't need to calm down. I mean, I'm not throwing things about, but there is an issue with the depth in the squad. And when you watch Maeda, you think to yourself, you know you're out there, mate. You're out there until we bring somebody new in. And that might be another few weeks. Do you have any concerns, JP? Has it always been a wee bit like that with Daizen?
Maybe there is an element of that because he got to show what he can do up front last season and he got the level of goals, which goals bring attention, probably scouts. Goals bring goal bonuses. I'm pretty sure he's not that much of a bean counter that he's like, oh, I want to play up front so I can score more goals so I can earn more goal bonus money.
He does shop in Costco though, doesn't he?
I'm not even sure what. I wonder what a goal bonus is at Celtic. What do you get when you score a goal?
I have no idea. I've spoken to some of the old school players and the goal bonus was paid by the boot manufacturers that sponsored them. Right. So if you wore Nike, Adidas, whatever it might have been, I think later on, Diadora and all that made a lot of deals for players. Umbro, Joe Miller was sponsored by Umbro, and I think there was goal bonuses, worked into the boot deals. No idea now. It's all written into the contract.
You're going to be pictured more, aren't you, when you've scored a goal, and you're going to be showing your boots off. So that does kind of make sense. But I listened to Liam saying that the other day about Daizen Maeda not being the type of person that would throw his toys at the pram, but probably wanting maybe to play centre forward and seeing the lack of goals coming from our starting striker in the last two games in Daizen Maeda, and maybe thinking, I can do a better job. I don't know if that's going far too far down the thought process of where his head is at. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter if he does want to leave. If there is truth to these rumours that you're talking about, it won't really matter whether or not he's playing in the left or playing in the middle or playing on the right. He's going to be wanting to leave. And when it comes to that point in a player's career at Celtic, we know from past experience that it's probably best to make sure that the end game works out best for everybody and you don't end up losing a player for or keeping an unhappy player and then selling him for way less than his value because his contract runs down. So we don't know when Daizen Maeda's contract is up. But if he signed a new deal when Brendan Rodgers came in, we're now in year 3 of Brendan Rodgers. So if he signed a 5-year deal, so
he's here till 27 currently.
Right, so he's got 2 years left, right? Well, that's the classic kind of sticker twist point in your career when you're a footballer, isn't it? If you've got 2 years left, you usually negotiate better terms and sign a new deal so that if a club was to come in for Daizen Maeda, then I'd still be expecting top dollar for him with 2 years left in his deal because, well, why wouldn't you? He's a Japanese international. All you need to do is point to his, before you even talk about his assists and goals, you can just point to his all the stats that the stat guys get excited about. Whether it's I don't even know the metrics, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like running, sprinting, all these sort of things. His records and numbers will be completely off the charts.
Didn't Brendan say he was the best presser?
Runs, all these things, all these different things that I don't know about, but they'll jump off the page to anybody looking at them.
Oh yeah. Because Brendan said he was the best presser in European football.
Yeah,
you know, and on the high press, and you know, as you say there, it's not just his goals to minutes ratio that people are looking at. That is all these other aspects, all these other metrics. I was looking at his career as well, JP, and although he started off at Yamaga, and he was there for 4 years as a pro, during that period he had 3 different loan deals out. So if you imagine that in the 4 years that he was with Yamaga, he's actually had 4 different clubs. And then he moves to Yokohama Marinos, where obviously he plays under Ange Postecoglou, and he lasts for 1 season there as well. So it's not as if he stays, you know, in any one place for a long time. He's then come to Celtic, and it's almost as if there's been a settling period. 2.5 seasons completed. He's into his 3rd full season now, 4th campaign that he's featured for Celtic. He's been here for a while, and I agree with you in terms of a player who's unhappy is a player that I think affects the dressing room. You know, and if you've got a few of them, then it can affect the entire squad, actually. You know, if you've got a few unhappy players in the squad. And I understand why a manager wants to have a tighter squad because of that. Because if guys aren't getting game time, they're a wee bit unhappy, they've got 2 or 3 mates, it kind of spreads. It's the old, it's the bad apple, isn't it, in the barrel? So I get that as well. The only thing we can go by is source information and what we see on the park, and he hasn't kicked on so far this season. There is only 2 games under his belt. If, for example, we qualify for the Champions League, JP, and we're going to talk about that next, I want to see if it's going to be one of your away days, Kazakhstan. We qualify for the Champions League. Brendan Rodgers signs a new contract. Daizen Maeda signs a new contract. We bring in 3 or 4 new players. I mean, it shows, we're all going to be a lot happier, but it also shows that, you know, in terms of the capacity for the board to push the boat out and show a bit of invention and a bit of ambition, it's simply not there until it's guaranteed. You know, it's like, it's a sure thing. We're in the Champions League. Let's push the boat out now. And, you know, that, for me, I think that the aversion to having a wee bit of boldness in your approach is what we're frustrated with right now, JP. And they will confirm all of these fears if indeed all or some of the things I've just mentioned happen after we qualify.
Yeah, and by the way, there could be an element, as much as what we heard yesterday about the fact that we might be waiting on players, or players might be waiting on us to get to the Champions League before they greenlight a deal. Then, and also, it kind of makes sense that Brendan Rodgers has cut such a frustrated figure, because Brendan Rodgers can't come out and say that in a presser. Oh, we've actually got 2 deals lined up, but the players have said they're not going to come to us unless we get Champions League. There's absolutely no way he would ever say that in a press conference, because it's unprofessional. It's breaking sort of secrecy towards the deal and all the rest of it. So it must be really frustrating for him to say. He's probably got clenched fists under the desk, just being like, I can't bloody say what I want to say here, but, you know, just like...
He sends coded messages, though. He talks about magicians, doesn't he? He talks about, I can't magic them here.
Well, yeah, and he's maybe even referring to that, like, because he's like, I can't magic us into the Champions League before we've played the games, and therefore that means that the deals can't happen. But by the same token, what if part of this Maeda mystery is riding on us being in the Champions League? What if we qualify for the Champions League and he's like, nah, I'm staying. I'll take the deal. We'll think about this again after the World Cup next summer, because say he plays in the Champions League, plays really well in the Champions League, value goes up. By the way, he is 28 in October, by the way, just for full clarity in terms of the selling model of Celtic and everything else. We can't just ignore the fact that a guy's getting older and you might want to cash in. I don't want us to, but I'm just looking at it from football business terms, which is unfortunately what we are in. And we're not in the kind of romantic kind of, oh, maybe he should stay for his whole career and all that and do a Henrik Larsson and go to Barcelona when he's 32 or whatever age he was. So the Maeda thing, we get to the Champions League. Maeda plays in the Champions League, gets some more goals in the Champions League, gets some more assists, gets more attention on him, and then goes to the World Cup, has a blinder of a World Cup, and then whatever level the club is in for him now could be even better next summer, because he'll be 28 going on 29 by that point. Is that the time that he moves, or is it now?
See the thing, JP, that is perfect for both club and player as well. So if you're trying to maximise your investment, because we are in the business of football, there's no getting away from it. You're talking 20 to 25 just now, and you're then talking 25 to 30 if all of these things match up, all these things marry up. So absolutely, yeah, we are a bit concerned about Daizen Maeda. It leads us on to the Champions League qualifier next week. We know who we're playing. We know where we're travelling. It was pointed out a number of times last night. But they need to travel to us as well. I get it. But, playing the Glasgow Derby.
Without Russian players, because they kind of get a visa.
So there's three, isn't there? There's two Belarusians and I think a Russian player who are struggling to get visas for the game. Three guys who would start the game. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see how that works as well. Jungle Lion, always a pleasure to see you, sir. What hypocrisy from UEFA yesterday. Banners for Gaza and fining Celtic for flying Palestinian flags. Yes. And as always, I think Celtic fans are very well versed when it comes to politics. They always have been. I think they always will be. And I've seen this getting called out last night, JP, and quite rightly so. There's no other way to describe it other than hypocrisy.
I missed that. What happened?
Yeah, so it's now okay to have the banners on the park. Talking about a ceasefire and all this kind of stuff, JP, and you're thinking, wow, it's not even about being ahead of the curve.
I get at the expense of like hundreds of thousands of people's lives. Is that so? It's all right now. That's why. Now. That's why Piers Morgan's changed his mind, and
they're all changing their tune. They're all changing their tune, And this is the thing, JP. The people who stood up, knowing that they're going to get flack for standing up for their political beliefs over the last number of years. I tip my hat to them, because especially if you're in the public eye, people come out and speak about it in the public eye and stand up for Palestine. They're going to get cancelled by a lot of these organisations, and that's what's been happening as well. But now you see how it's all turning. The narrative is changing, which is great. But pity these people who have had to suffer throughout the period where people had platforms and didn't use them positively. So Jungle Lion's right to call them out. Thomas Burns, here we go. So does anyone lose a job if the unthinkable happens and we don't qualify for the Champions League? Thomas, I'll tell you something. Yeah, they should. They should. And I don't think it's anybody in the football department. I don't think anybody in the football department deserves to lose their job. And people might think, oh, that's a bizarre statement to make. You'll win and lose games on the football park. Yeah, but you've got to be as well prepared as possible for the challenge ahead, regardless of who you draw. JP, regardless of who you draw. I watched the Brendan Rodgers interview this morning, the exclusive 5-minute interview. I don't know if there's a longer one behind a paywall on the Celtic TV channel on YouTube. And he's talking about it. And he's talking about, obviously, the past games that were played against Kazakhstan opposition. And I think we've played Kazakhstan teams on 3 occasions previously. So 6 games against them. Our record away is pretty poor. In fact, it's really poor. We beat a team 5-0 at home, JP, and we end up going over and they beat us 4-3 away. And Rodgers was talking about the fact it was 1 each at half time.
We're in that strip.
We're in that beautiful strip. It was 1 each at half time, and then they scored a couple of quick goals in the second half. Yeah, so all these memories, and he was talking about it, and the quote that stood out is, "We'll do everything we can to make sure we get into the group stages." And again, it goes back to these messages that he's sending in the press conferences. I can only do what I can do. I can only operate with the tools that I'm being given here. And there is a sense of frustration, absolutely, but not the same type of reaction that Brendan gave first time round. I don't know if you would agree with that. I think it got to the point where he could see no future and he walked out mid-season. Don't see that happening. But my biggest concern is what's happening now might affect his decision at the end of the season.
Yeah, no, definitely. That is a huge source of frustration, that if indeed he would put pen to paper on a new deal, and anything that we've done or not done is influencing his decision in a negative way, then that's you just can't legislate for that, as far as I'm concerned. Like the people above should be doing, even if Peter Lawwell and him hate each other's guts, as is widely reported, right? I don't care. I absolutely don't care. Those two, that relationship between those two guys should not impact anything else at Celtic Football Club. Brendan Rodgers is a top quality manager who we were very, very lucky to get back. I said when he came back that when he left, I was like, well, that's so sad that his reputation as Celtic manager has ended in February of a season. And I know he'll point to the fact that we were however many points ahead in the league at that time, and we were in the semi-final of the cup. We'd won a cup. Like, there was all of that positivity that he can fling back at us for us saying, well, what are you doing? You've left us mid-season, or as good as mid-season. But at that time, I was just like, no, you don't want to see someone who's been so brilliant for Celtic leaving it like this. So him coming back was like, I never would have in a million years thought that we would be able to get a manager of Brendan Rodgers' quality back at Celtic. Never. And in the time that he was away, yes, you could point to the latter part of what happened at Leicester. I think that was much like this. He wasn't a magician there, and he couldn't perform magic there to get them on an even keel in terms of money and everything else, and the players that they were selling and whatnot. So him coming back was massive. And although he signed a 3-year deal at that time, and then you rewind back to talking about being emptied, and I'll be here for the 3 years unless I get emptied. But you're well aware that in that time period there has to be some thought to, well, who's the next manager, or who's going to manage after you, or are you going to stay? And if there's a willingness on his part to extend his time, even if it's for only another like 2 years or something like that, and then he does 5 years, I think everybody would be like, absolutely, because we saw the progression that he's made with the Champions League last season. We hope that we can do that again this season. That's part of what you sign up for when you're looking forward to a new season. You're like, right, the exciting home and away days in Champions League. Can we better last season? I would say there's an argument, if we recruit well, we could turn a Zagreb away into a win. We could turn a Bruges at home into a win. That's 4 more points. Those 4 points are absolutely so valuable when it comes to those league placings when the Champions League draws to a close. And that means that we could have had an easier option than Real Madrid or Bayern Munich in the knockouts. So it's not fantasy land to think that we could do that again and possibly get further.
No, you're right, JP, right? And we could have done better last season had we performed better in the January transfer window, because we ran without a replacement for Kyogo. We still don't have a replacement. People might point out that Yamada is a centre forward, right? That's fine. But, you know, we've already looked at the response of Brendan Rodgers when he came to the football club, although it's maybe tempered a little bit now after the initial comment that he made about Yamada and Inamura. But he's not the replacement for Kyogo. He's a guy that's come in relatively cheap, might turn out to be a great player. JP might take us all by surprise, and I hope he does. But he's not a replacement for Kyogo. He's not that guy that you bring in and he's now your number 9. You know, we're playing Daizen Maeda up top because at this moment in time he is the best option. He's the guy that's got more credit in the bank than anybody else in that position at Celtic. But I always go back to that January transfer window because that little bit of added quality could well have been the difference maker when it came to those final minutes in Bayern Munich. You look at the chances we missed over the 2 legs against Bayern Munich as well. Did we just come up short, I think, in the January transfer window? Yeah, I do. And that's no hindsight. We spoke about this all throughout, the second half of last season. But another thing that I found quite interesting about this article that I referred to at the beginning of the show was the fact that, and it was a good point, and it's something we've spoken about, but I've probably not highlighted it recently. Remember how quickly we did the Kyogo and the Jota deals after the Young Boys game? Remember, it was just like, boom, boom, done. And it was like, they were all lined up. So these deals can be done without anybody really having the knowledge of them outside of a very core group of people at the football club. I mean, did you know that Kyogo was going to Rennes? Did you know it was going to be announced the night we beat Young Boys 1-0? Of course we didn't. Nobody knew, JP, but it still happened, and it happened quickly. So there's also that in the back of my mind thinking, right, we might pull the trigger as soon as the qualifier in Kazakhstan, the second leg. You know, we might be able to do that. So that's, I think, actually, that's a positive because we did do very quick business, albeit not enough business after the Young Boys game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I take that point, and obviously those deals were done in the January transfer window with days to go until it closed, but they also were done on the basis that we'd qualified from that group stage of the Champions League. So it was almost like, was there anything sort of riding on that meant that we got those deals done? Who knows? But I'm more optimistic that hearing those things about the players potentially sort of saying, right, well, yeah, I mean, what would a Celtic supporter, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it, but what would the Celtic supporter feel about knowing that a player has only said they would come to Celtic if we're in the Champions League? Because it's kind of, do you know what I mean? It kind of feels like you're kind of half in, half out, aren't you? You're like, all right, well, only if you're not really coming for the prestige of playing for Celtic and what the club's all about and everything else. You'll probably say that to the camera at your interview when you sign, but in reality, we know that potentially 2 of those signings, if we're to get the Champions League, are only here for Champions League. So we should know at that point not to get attached to them and to probably know that they're going to do a Nicholas Kuhn in 18 months.
I think it's becoming more and more normalised as a football fan. The fact that people are here fleetingly, JP, it's very rare now that they're going to be here for the lasting 7 years with no connection to the club prior to coming to the club. That doesn't happen now, does it?
And when someone breaks that cycle, like Daizen Maeda, who stays for 3 into his 3rd season, is that right? 3rd season? Or?
This is his 4th, but he only played the half of the first one.
Of course, right, yeah, but well, he's stayed longer than maybe, you know, if that plan was discussed with him at the start of his Celtic career, right, well, do this, do that, and then, you know, we'll look at a move or whatever. But he stayed longer. So when they break past that kind of 3rd season, like, can you imagine how heartbreaking it would have been to have Matt O'Reilly here for 3 years or something, and then he leaves, like, and he's like breaking records left, right, and centre with goals scored, assists, and everything else, and then he leaves. It's almost kind of like maybe a bit of a relief that he went when he did, because he was only ever going to get better, I think, for us. And the injury at Brighton's obviously just derailed him a little bit in terms of his progress down there. But when you read now that there is actually concrete links to Juventus, that's wild. That's absolute. What an amazing trajectory to go from MK Dons to Fulham, MK Dons, us, Brighton. Barely playing really for Brighton, but shown enough in that league that somebody else is. And I mean, a large part of whoever's scouting him will be what he did at Celtic.
Yeah, what he's done in the Champions League, absolutely.
There's no doubt about it that it's not. They're not going, oh well, just because he got a move to Brighton, then he's good enough for us. They're not going to shell out 25 million based on that. But yeah, some story for him in terms of trajectory.
It's incredible, JP. I don't think we'll ever stop talking about Matt O'Reilly on Thursday on A Celtic State of Mind. Big shout out to Matt's Gran if you're still tuning in. But I think also the board need to look at the fact of the impact. I think it's a great point you make there, right? He's not getting the move to Juventus based on his performances at Brighton. He's getting the move based on the fact that there's data out there which suggests that when this player plays in the Champions League at that level, he still performs at a very high level. And that wasn't with Brighton. So the Celtic board should look at the importance of that Champions League, JP. It puts players on a platform and their value soars. It absolutely skyrockets.
You do the business there.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of repel at this constant criticism of Engels, particularly Engels and Ida. Because
the latest one at the weekend when Petrov's standing up for him, I don't know if you read or heard that.
No.
So he's more or less, he's basically been written off again. I mean, I think it started really early doors. I think the narrative was set really early, and we spoke about it. I remember the penalty against Hearts, big pressure. Mm-hmm. And one of the other guys, whose name I forget because he's a non-entity, really says something about 10 million, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
So straight off the bat, I don't know if it's a Scottish football attitude where it's, it's a really negative kind of view on a player at that time who was 20 years of age coming from the Bundesliga at £11 million. Straight away, the sneers. The knives were out from day one, JP. But before he had played a number of games in the Champions League, before he had broken into the Belgian international squad, the knives were out. I can't remember the same attitudes, different age profile. About the other Belgian midfielder and Scottish football. He got dropped this season. I can't remember the outpouring of what a waste of money. That guy's not got it. He's a £3 million player. I've not heard any of that, but I've heard it constantly about Arnie Engels. Engels isn't playing at the moment. He's not started the first two games. Nygren's come in, and for me, he's been a real positive. Nygren's been excellent. I've really liked what I've seen with him. I like his style. I just like the way that he's very progressive. When he gets that ball, he carries it. He doesn't seem to, for me, he's comfortable. He's not his comfort zone if he gets the ball wide right, wide left, middle of the park. He seems very comfortable wherever he gets, very intelligent footballer. And obviously, we kind of knew what KT was bringing when he rejoined the club. But Nygren has been, for me, a massive positive of this window so far.
Took his goal well on Sunday. I would have liked to have been there. Actually, had the opportunity of going, but I thought after two Oasis kicks in the spin, getting a bus from Easterhouse at 7:30 in the morning wasn't the most appealing thing, and I apologise. Can
I point out? I'm sorry to jump in. I don't like jumping in. JP bought his tickets for Oasis. If anybody's in the comment section say, it's all right for him, because he's in the industry. JP bought his tickets.
Middle of September last year, it was like, you buy them now or you don't get them. 300 quid. Like, I was absolutely rooked as a result of it. But I knew I wanted to be there, and I wasn't going to let that stop me. I was like, well, these tickets are gold dust. I've got an opportunity to buy them before they go on sale, basically. So I obviously took that. But I didn't make it up to Aberdeen. I think it would have been any other away trip on Sunday. If it had been Kilmarnock or something like that, I probably would have gone. But I genuinely think I would have done myself harm if I'd gone all the way to Pittodrie after those two gigs in particular. So didn't make it up, but obviously watched the game, and I was impressed with Nygren and also just his attitude in the post match was really impressive as well. He seems genuinely happy to be at Celtic. He was talking about celebrating with the fans and possibly the team that he played for prior to us. Was it not Nordersland or
Danish team?
Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to them, but I can't imagine they've got a fan base like ours. So he's obviously going to get to play at Celtic Park in a Champions League qualifier as well. So he'll see it turned up several notches from the Newcastle friendly and the St Mirren league opener. And I'm sure he'll be blown away by that. I hope he is anyway, because if the fans are on song, then that means the team are on song that night. But yeah, I thought he looked really well. But I didn't look at him thinking, oh well, that's Engels done. I just, there's no way I'm thinking like that, because I like Arne Engels. I think he's a good footballer, and I think he'll develop this season. I don't think that it's a case of, oh, get rid of him, just cut our losses, get rid of him. Why would you do that to a 21-year-old international footballer who possesses a lot of really good traits that can be coached? He's not the finished article. He knows that. We know that. The manager knows that. But ultimately, you should allow the guy time to develop, in much the same way as we allowed Matt O'Reilly to develop into the player that we sold him as. You know, I'm not saying that Arne Engels is going to go for 25, 30 million or anything like that. I would like to think that maybe would be his sort of ceiling. I think we'll certainly, as you've said, sell him for more than 11 million whenever that time comes. But I think we should do all our best to support the guy while he's here. And the manager hasn't put him on the bench because he doesn't rate him. I mean, I'm pretty sure Brendan Rodgers rates Arne Engels as a football player. But sometimes you do need to just take a step back to take a couple of steps forward, you know. And he'll play a part of the season. There's no doubt about it. You know, he'll play, if we get to the Champions League, he'll play Champions League football. He's proved last season he could do it. And as you quite rightly pointed out, when you're talking about value in yesterday's show, how could you not attribute the value of Champions League wins, Champions League points, Champions League progression to three players who, rather than just focusing on their price tag, have contributed a collective financial gain to the club over the course of a season? Like, that's madness to not think of it like that.
No, absolutely. When you look at the individuals, Arne Engels, there's a couple of points I would make. You've got guys like Rio Otatu, who made 55 appearances for Celtic last season, Callum McGregor 54, Daizen Maeda 53, Kuhn 51. You know, huge amounts of appearances, 51 for Daizen Maeda. You look at Arne Engels as a 20 going on 21-year-old, 52 games of football. And that's before you think about the internationals, of which I think he played 3 or 4 internationals as well. So he's never played that level of football before. And I think that there's a transitional period to get into that zone.
Physically and psychologically.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of his style, he's adapted better to Champions League football than he has to Scottish football. And there's maybe a bit to work on there, where his style hasn't really been as suited. He's got more space in the Champions League. You know, he's performed better in the Champions League games than he has against the likes of, let's say, St Johnstone last season or Ross County last season, or perhaps Livingston this season, where there's big banks of players in front of you and it's harder to make that breakthrough. So that's just a work in progress. I think Engels is a work in progress. Nygren's come in. And by the way, we've seen players coming in straight off the bat looking great. Lewis Palmer looked great, I thought, when he first came in. So, you know, I'm not counting all my chickens, but Nygren at this moment in time, I think he's looked like a brilliant addition to the side. How great is it to have somebody like Tierney as well, getting in the assists and all this kind of stuff? And I still believe, JP, he's playing within himself at the moment. I don't think he's going full throttle just yet.
Again, just getting used to the environment again and everything else. He'll maybe have a little bit of imposter syndrome from the fact that he's been away and come back. Like, you don't go away and come back and then everything's just the same and you feel confident enough to express yourself exactly the same as you did before. I mean, you'll get used to playing with the players, you'll get used to the speed of the game up here again is completely different to what he's experienced elsewhere. So I just see Kieran Tierney getting better and better as the season goes on, and it's just amazing to see him back and seeing him grab the jersey up and pointing up to the away support, because I was there. I think it might have been his last goal for Celtic, actually, when he scored that goal and then ran back to the away support. I mean, that's one of the best moments I've ever had at an away game.
It's iconic, isn't it? That's an iconic modern moment in Celtic's history. Up there with him rushing back from the hospital to get the cup as well.
And the Man City goal in Champions League as well. And some of his absolutely brutal tackles at Ibrox, where he's just cleaned people out but taking the ball and then just walked off.
Waltzed away, like the silent assassin.
That's so good, man. When I can't remember who it was he did it to, but he just absolutely cleaned somebody out.
And they're down there and they're giving it all that, and he just
nothing. There was
nonchalant.
There was nothing that anybody could really say, because it was just like, he's won the ball. You know what I mean? And well, I tell you, there's one thing he's not done in a Celtic jersey, and that's score against them. And my God, can you imagine? First goal back for Celtic against them would be unbelievable.
I'm visualising it. I really am. John Mullane, in you come. You're on the YouTube. Kuhn, Kyogo Jota, Daizen goes, Jesus. You'd need Jesus to sort that one out. Johnny Ryan comes in. Maeda has not been the same player as last season. Playing different position as well, Johnny. I think I would all love to see him actually playing through the middle. Alan Parker, but it's just down to bodies at the minute. I get the cultural phenomenon around Oasis, but can't stand them. Good taste in football, though. Well, absolutely, Alan, we get that. There's a lot of people that can't stand them, but I tell you what, when you look at the turnout, I think their albums have all been coming back into the charts and all that as well. Unbelievable. The branding of that band is incredible. Multi Joe was at the gig on Tuesday. It was brilliant, I have to say. Weather, atmosphere, etc. A great summer's night's entertainment. We've also got Kevin Hampsey, Brendan Rodgers doing everything we can except enhance the squad, support the fans' pockets, or engage with fans and make them aware of the club's plans out with new merch. Football fans will take information and make up their own minds if the club doesn't tell you otherwise. And that's what's happening just now, Kevin. There's no communication. There's a 5-minute video on this morning, but it's all very, diluted kind of stuff, talking about the upcoming challenge against Falkirk, for example. So let's finish off by talking about that, JP. Apparently, the Smile of Sorrow has been on trial this week at Falkirk. Imagine he came out with a big smile. I'd be inclined to say he'll be the first booking if he plays for Falkirk.
I was just about to say that. I would be straight onto the William Hill app to see what the price was for a booking, because he's good for it. But that's a bit of a weird one. Falkirk have had a bit of a mixed start to their return to the Premier League. The draw at home to Dundee United, I thought was quite impressive, given, but maybe that you could put that down to Dundee United's travelling in the week prior to that game. I don't know. I didn't see the game, but a point at home to Dundee United in your first game back is nothing to be ashamed of. But then to get beat off Livingston last week shows that they're maybe not, quite the danger that you would think they are. But it's a cup game. You never know what can happen. They were beating us last season. It was last season, wasn't it? When Falkirk was it last season?
Yeah, they were the best. They were the best team we'd played, according to
They were beating us until we brought on subs and turned the game and ended up winning it 3-2 or 3-1. So they definitely got to be wary of the team that we put out. I would expect Engels to probably start, possibly even Yamada. I saw what I saw of Yamada against Aberdeen, and I know it wasn't for very long, but anybody that's sort of clambering for him to now start over Ida permanently has got amnesia with regards to what Adam Ida's done for Celtic. I really don't think that is the solution. The solution to the striking problem is going out and paying for another striker in the same mould as Kyogo, or maybe not the same style of player, but certainly going out and getting somebody that is the main rival to Adam Ida up front. And I don't think that's Shin Yamada, but I think he should probably, him or Kenny should start tomorrow up front for Celtic, because it's that opportunity to see what they can do, because we need to see what they can do over the course of a 90 minutes and a start. And he's not going to start. I doubt he'll start either of them against Livingston, because whoever's playing against Livingston the following week will be playing the following week against Rangers at Ibrox. So this is the ideal game to not make wholesale changes. I think maybe Sinisalo will play in goal. Might see Simpson Pusey make an appearance in some shape or form, either off the bench or starting, but I doubt he'll start. Inamura, does he finally get some competitive action? Bernardo, the curious case of Paulo Bernardo.
He's the one I've written down, Bernardo. Yeah, I just think, you want to see new players. You always do as a football fan, JP. So if Simpson Pusey makes his debut, great. If your Maeda gets some minutes, brilliant. But there's a player in this squad at the moment who's never kicked a ball, and it's Paulo Bernardo. Now, Luke McCowan comes out on Flag Day and he's the saviour, scores the winner, brilliant. Arnie Engels, he's been a sub on both occasions, and Nygren's looked great. Hatate started off brilliant. McGregor's McGregor.
What a goal. What a goal.
I know. Unreal. Gets better with every viewing. Unbelievable. There's a great still shot actually of the goalie getting his fingertips to it, and it shows you just how accurate Hatate had to be to score. It had to be absolute precision in the top corner. It was an amazing goal. But Bernardo's a guy I'd like to see getting minutes this weekend. I think there's a decision to be made on that player. I'm not saying that he goes in this window, JP, but he's the last choice at the minute. He's the fifth choice midfielder. We need to see what's happening. He never had a great season last season, but he is a player I rate highly, and it'd be a shame if he hasn't developed the way we would have expected him to.
Yeah, I can kind of foresee like a message or a tweet from Celtic saying Paulo Bernardo has joined such and such a team on loan for the season. I don't see how he gets a game. Where is he playing in that midfield? It's great to have the strength and depth that we have, but we have got quite a lot of central midfielders. And weirdly, we're being linked with another one in Andy Irving from West Ham. Like that seems to be quite a prominent link. I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but you don't like to see a player like that, as good as that, sort of being so far down the pecking order, because Nygren coming in has pushed him further down.
Yeah.
Because if Engels has been your kind of probably first thought off the bench to replace the midfielder, then where does Paulo Bernardo get a game? And I understand you need a big squad, but it's whether or not the conversation's been had with him to be like, look, we don't really know how we're going to get you into this team this season unless we have like a huge injury crisis, which obviously, touch wood, we hope we don't. So I do wonder about Paulo Bernardo. I wonder about Callum Osmond. I wonder about Johnny Kenny signing a new deal. I mean, announcing Johnny Kenny. I mean, I said last week that I didn't think Johnny Kenny was the answer for us because of the club level that he was being linked with. And then a few days later, he signs a new deal till 2029. And you're like, why would Celtic do that at this time when everybody, you knew that all the comments straight away would be like, just like a new signing and slagging them off and all of that. You knew that was what the replies were going to be. So why wouldn't you just hold off on announcing that until such time as it would have been probably welcomed a lot better than
end of the campaign, end of the transfer window, JP, when a few bodies are in, 100%. And you announced that as well, right? And again, I felt sorry for him, but I felt sorry for Liam Scales. They wished him a happy birthday. Oh, by the way, happy birthday, Dermot Desmond today. They wished Liam Scales a happy birthday, and the comments, and it's about reading the room, isn't it? It's just like, come on, read the room. Just make it a good week, that final week of the transfer window, and then you can drip feed all this stuff out to us. You don't have to announce it. We never knew that Benzo had been given 3 years. Because they never ever announced that, did they? But yeah, before we wrap up, I'm just going to say JP is a connoisseur of the Celtic jersey. This one over my shoulder is going to be there until tomorrow night. Then we're going to give it away to someone in the comment section. Over the last week, I've been asking you to like the videos, to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You've responded really positively, actually. There's been a lot of people getting involved. And finally, the final thing you need to do is you need to tell me the original jersey that this was modelled on. Which player does this jersey remind you of? Just comment. There's no right or wrong answers. It's going to be a random selection, but which player does this jersey remind you of? Let us know in the comment section. And we started off with Oasis, so we're going to finish off with Oasis. And that's what you're talking about earlier.
Yes. Can I give you mine on that top?
Yeah.
I'll give you a Vidar reset. Long sleeved. Long sleeved. Probably in like an away UEFA Cup game in Zurich or something like that. Like some, when it's dark, I can just see him on the pitch with a long sleeve Celtic top on.
He's the first player that comes to my mind. He scored in the League Cup final, didn't he, in 2000?
He did. The much forgotten League Cup final of the year 2000, which it's so. I'd watched it back when you did that watch along thing. I didn't watch it at the time, but a few days later, I was like, I'm going to watch that, and I watched it back, and it was just so bizarre. Like,
it was a bizarre time. Tommy Burns on the sideline, more or less managing the team, and Kenny Dalglish was the interim manager, and he's wearing that puffer jacket on cup final day, you know, like he's on a public park somewhere in Glasgow.
I'd left for France in February, right, and that was in the March. So I'd left for France, and John Barnes was the manager. And then I'm in France living there for about a month, and then I come back, and Kenny Dalglish is the manager, and it was the landscape had changed. It was like it was a proper kind of what's the word you would use when something's in flux? It just felt like it was like everything was temporary. We had no idea who the manager at that point. We had no idea. It was Gus Hiddink was the strong rumour, wasn't it? We had no idea we were going to get Martin O'Neill, and then fast forward to that speech on the steps, and then everything changed, and here we are, 25 years later.
25 years later, and there you are at Barazat Design drinking
online. Yeah, talking online about it. Like, if you'd showed us this in 2000, you'd have been like, "What is that?"
That's Star Trek stuff. Absolutely, that's futuristic. Listen, thank you every single one of you for getting involved. It's always a pleasure on a Thursday to chat Celtic and a wee bit of music with JP Mason. Tomorrow we'll be back at 12:30 as always, and tomorrow night we are covering the game. So join us 30 minutes before that. This is Acsom. I'll need to look at the times to see when we put that one out. But I'll let you know if you follow us on the socials. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Join us again tomorrow on a Celtic State of Mind.